All right, welcome back. Of course, we're following breaking news in the Middle East, live pictures of Jerusalem, where it's now 2 in the morning. As you can imagine, the entire nation of Israel is still on the red alert. The CIA issued a 48-hour warning of an attack from Iran. The commander-in-chief of an Islamic Guard promised a retaliation attack after Israel carried out airstrikes on an Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria. 2 generals died, others as well. Today, thousands of Iranians held funerals for those generals, along with rallies for Al-Quds Day, an annual pro-Palestinian event that symbolizes resistance. It's taken place for more than 4 decades. At the same time, the IDF announced it fired 2 officers after 7 aid workers were killed in Gaza by a drone strike. The IDF said it was accidental. There's also new details on the phone call between President Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu. The president told the prime minister that if there's not a change in the course of action going forward in Gaza, that the U.S. will no longer support the ally. When reporters questioned President Biden about that, he seemingly scoffed.
Did you threaten to stop military aid to Israel?
I asked them to do what they're doing.
Are you abandoning Israel? What do you stop, man? Are you abandoning Israel?
Is that a serious question? Joining us now is Ambassador John Bolton, former assistant to the president for national security affairs. Ambassador, I'm so grateful that you're here. I suspect it's not the first time that you and I have had a conversation when we've seen Iran chanting death to Israel, death to America. Is this different than conversations we've had in the past?
Well, I think so. I think this is a very serious point, and the president's dismissing the question, "Are you abandoning Israel?" is really quite surprising, because there is now a risk, I think, of an Iran retaliation directly against Israel, and we don't know what it might be or what extent it might really bring the region closer to direct Israel-Iran conflict. But the fact is, we've been close to it because of the nature of what the threat that Israel faces, most of which comes from Iran, in Gaza, in the north from Hezbollah. This attack on the consulate in Damascus was not simply eliminating several top leaders of the Iranian Quds force. It also crossed an Iranian red line. They said, "We will not tolerate any attacks on Iranian soil." And the soil of an embassy compound is considered to be the sovereign territory of the embassy. Now, of course, Iran crosses whatever red lines it wants, but now Israel has crossed one of theirs. So the extent, the nature of this Iranian response is going to be very important, could be very dangerous. It could be they back off. It could be they're intimidated by what Israel may do. So we'll have to wait and see.
You know, initially the CIA had that 48-hour tentative deadline, and now some of the reports are saying perhaps early next week. Obviously, we don't know. That, like you said, there's intelligence that something is coming. There's not necessarily intelligence as to where and when and what. I think every parent, every human in America is saying, what will it take to get U.S. boots on the ground? So what is the U.S. threshold?
Well, if, for example, there were a direct attack on Israel from Iran, then I think the U.S. would definitely get involved to help protect Israel. If the response came in the force of missile or drone attacks from Hezbollah in the north, I think it's less likely. But Israel's in a very difficult position, and it's bogged down in Gaza. You can see what the administration's trying to do to slow its effort to eliminate Hamas. At the same time, the threat from Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria is much more serious militarily. And if Hezbollah fires barrages of missiles or drones that overwhelm Israel's air defenses, there could be a serious threat and potentially enormous civilian casualties. So Israel lives in a dangerous neighborhood. It's in a vulnerable position now. And this, frankly, is not the time for the United States to be calling into question our support for Israel's right to self-defense.
Right. I think if you're a consumer of anything in the Middle East, you realize that there are so many heads on the snake. It is sometimes difficult to keep it clear. And I think my question, and forgive me if this is repetitive, is there an opportunity for it to stay regional, for it to say sort of proxy? I mean, it was just Monday that we recommitted additional weapons. So whether or not we want to admit it, obviously we are very much invested. So is there a way that it would stay sort of contained?
Sure. I think if Iran doesn't really respond in a vigorous way, that would be an indication that they don't want to see further attacks on Iranian territory. Iran has been dialing up or dialing down the activity of the various terrorist groups to suit its agenda, which is not discernible to us. After 170 attacks on American personnel in Iraq and Syria after October 7, a strong American response against Iranian assets in Iraq has largely stopped those attacks. But I think that's an example of how Iran is really controlling this situation overall.
Before I let you go, we heard from UN members today a plea for peace, and then we saw a lot of finger pointing from countries such as Russia, really blaming Israel. Your take on that, the optics of all of that?
Well, I think those who are pointing the finger at Israel are ignoring who started this, who's caused the heartache, who has the moral responsibility. It's all Hamas. This brutal cynicism, not just the attacks of October 7th, but exposing their fellow residents of Gaza, civilians, to danger simply to protect Hamas leadership and the Hamas fighting capability is itself a war crime. If people want a ceasefire in Gaza, how about calling on Hamas to surrender?
Yeah, and sometimes I think we really do lose sight that there are still hostages. There are still people underground, and we don't know what's happening to them. And it's something that sometimes I do feel as if we lose sight. So, Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to be with you again.